Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are talking about something that is not like super exciting, but it is super useful, and it is about spreadsheets and using spreadsheets for your making and your formulating. So even if you don't formulate, spreadsheets are so useful. You'll never have to use an online recipe calculator again, entering everything in, hitting calculate, and then trying to keep that tab open until you're done with it. None of that business. Put that stuff in a spreadsheet, save that in your Google Drive. Now it's infinitely searchable and you can scale it as much as you want. It's easy to store different iterations of the recipe. If you make some changes, you can keep all your notes right there in the spreadsheet as well. It's fantastic. And if you do formulate, there's tons of awesome little things, little math things that you can have the spreadsheet do for you, and then set it up so that it automatically updates if you change the recipe. So you can use them to do things like calculate the amount of emulsifier you need, and to calculate the quantity sufficient ingredients, or perhaps to calculate your active surfactant matter. Exciting stuff, I know, right? No, seriously though, I use spreadsheets all the time for all my formulating. I have tab spreadsheets for generally, I'll have one spreadsheet for a month worth of formulas. They're super handy. It's brilliant to be able to go back and review my records and rescale things, and just they're great. And I want you to get on board with me with the spreadsheets and stop using online recipe calculators, because spreadsheets are superior. Come on, well, I'll show you.
Okay, so here we are with a blank spreadsheet, and I got a dog in my lap for a pretty rare puppy cuddle, so we're just going to kind of roll with this and hope she doesn't mind a bit of an audio cameo. So here is our blank spreadsheet. This is kind of where we start things. So columns A, B, and C are typically where I do most of my work. So column C here is usually ingredients. Column B is percentages, and then column A is our batch size. We can kind of throw any number in there. It'll be your batch size. So that would be 50 grams for me, might be 50 ounces for you. It's a lot of product. But yeah, you get the general idea. I can kind of bold that, and then it can be helpful to freeze that first row so that it stays in place when you scroll. So you're going to want to select your column B here and formulate that, or format that as a percentage. And now we can just kind of start dropping some ingredients in there for a bit of a sample formula. So maybe a bit of shea butter, some safflower oil, maybe some cocoa butter. And then we can kind of throw in some percents here. So maybe 50% shea butter, 30% safflower oil, 20% cocoa butter. Because we formulated this column as percents, when we start typing, the percent sign's all just there. And then we want to throw in a little bit of math to calculate the amounts of these ingredients at that percentage level for our batch size, which is this number here in cell A1. So you're going to throw in an equal sign, and then we're going to do $sign A and $1. And so that calls in the value from cell A1, and you'll sort of see why we're throwing in the dollar signs in a moment here. And then times, and then B2. And so that's the percentage amount of shea butter that we're using. So 25, that's perfect because that is 50% of 50. But see, if you grab the little corner here and drag her down, it continues the calculation. But as you can see up here, when we click on the cell, that A1 cell value has stayed the same, but the B value is changing, and that's because of those dollar signs. So that's kind of the general gist of it. So let's start by taking a look at a formula that's already entered into a spreadsheet. So this is the sugar plum body butter bars I shared recently on the blog. And so you can see we have our batch size up here in cell A1. We have our percentages in the B column, and we have our ingredients in the C column. And so you can see that calculation formula here, the A1 times B2, A1 times B3, so on and so forth, down the batch size. And you can see that if we change that value for A1, everything changes all on its own. Delightful. Something else I like to do is set up a sum of the B columns, make sure that you always have 100%, since of course that is important. So you're going to be Oh, he needs his chin scratch. So you're going to be setting up that equals sum and then the range. So this is B2 through B8, since that is, all of the values of percentages in this particular formula. So that helps make sure that you always have a formula that adds up to 100%. So if we're looking at a product here that has a sort of a QS value. So QS stands for quantity sufficient. So the general idea is we know we need these amounts of kind of all these ingredients, the aloe and the hydrosol and the propanediol and whatnot. But then after that's all settled, we just need enough water to make it add up to 100%. So you take a look at the little formula here that calculates the value of cell B2, which is the percentage of distilled water in the formula. And you'll see up here it is 1 minus sum B3 through B9. So B3 through B9 are all of the ingredients in our formula that's not water. So we add up all of those, and then we subtract that number from 1, which is 100%. So basically we're saying subtract everything else that's in the recipe and then from 100%, and that remaining number, that is our water value. So that's a very easy way to make sure that you have everything in the recipe and you don't have to do any weird math. And then if you create a sum of all of those things, it is of course going to add up to 100%. Up next, we'll take a look at calculating active surfactant matter. So you can see here we have our hard amounts for a 140 gram batch. We have our percentages, we have our ingredients, and then there's a couple things going on over here that we haven't seen yet. So these are our surfactants, and you can definitely tell that these are kind of my behind the scenes notes because this is shorthand. The CC glucoside is caprol and caprylyl glucoside, and the amphasol CG is cocamidopropylbetaine. And so we're calculating the active surfactant matter. So I've detailed more of what exactly that is in the blog if you want to go down to the description box and click through and give that a read. But these values here are the active surfactant matter of these individual surfactants. And I have that information for you on my blog. So if you go to humblebeeandme.com/surfactants, you will find this page. And on this page, I have listed the surfactants that I work with, the formats that they come in, their charge, their pH, their active matter, and then there's some places for references and where to purchase and whatnot. But you can kind of see here, there's the caprylyl and capryl glucoside at active matter 60%, and the cocamidopropylbetaine active matter 30%. So we head over here again, and there's your 60%, and there's your 30%. And so what we are doing is we're calculating how much active caprylyl and caprylyl glucoside is in this formula. So we know we're using it at 12%, and 60% of that 12% is active surfactant matter. So this cell here, E6, calculates it. So it multiplies the active surfactant matter percentage by the percentage that the surfactant itself is present in the formula, and gives us the active surfactant level for this formula at that amount. And we do that for all the surfactants in the recipe, which is just the 2 for this one here. And then over here in cell E8, we use a sum function up here, sum E6 and E7, to calculate our total active surfactant matter. So that's how you can use spreadsheets to calculate active surfactant matter. Something else you can use spreadsheets for is calculating the amount of emulsifying wax you might need for a formula. So if you take a look at this formula here, you'll see there's a water phase, our oil phase, our emulsifier, and our cool down phase. So we're taking a look at the oil phase and the emulsifier for this example. So the bulk of the oil phase is castor oil, safflower oil, and cetyl alcohol. And we have our emulsifier, polar wax in this case. So we typically use emulsifiers at 20 to 25% of our oil phase, or 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, with the emulsifying wax being the 1. And so we're going to use that ratio for the math rather than the percentages this time around. So if we take a look at the value of this cell that's calculating the value of the polar wax, you'll see that it's the sum of the bulk of the oil phase, so the castor oil plus the safflower oil plus the cetyl alcohol, divided by 3. And so that is our percentage value here for the polo wax. And so that would give us 25% polo wax, 25% of the oil phase, because we basically say we have the 3 parts here that we divide by 3, and then we've added a 4th equal sized part, which is the polo wax. So 25%. If we bump this number up to 4, that'll give us a 20% polo wax, or sort of a 1-to-4 ratio of emulsifying wax to our oil phase. And you can see how everything else in the recipe, well, really just the distilled water, adjusted as necessary to accommodate that changing amount of emulsifying wax.
All right, so that is how I set up spreadsheets and use them for my formulating, for my recipe saving and development and expansion and scaling. I love me some spreadsheets. I would love to hear if you have any great tips and tricks that you use with your spreadsheets and your formulas, because I know that spreadsheet software is this like vast and immense world of possibilities, and I have only just scratched the surface. So if you know a thing that I should know, I would love to hear it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please go down to the description box below this video. I have a couple other useful things down there and links to my blog where you'll find over 1,000 recipes, 1,000, plus the Humblebee and Me encyclopedia and FAQ, which is quite comprehensive. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.